Hello, everyone. I'm going to tell you about the Southern Cone subregion. This includes the countries of Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, and Paraguay. And you can see why it has the name the Southern Cone because it appears to have this cone shape in southern South America. So let's first talk about the politics of the Southern Cone. The main issue in the past was instability of government. They were constantly switching back and forth between a more stable democratic government and military dictatorships. And this happened because they were trying to establish a president, and the military would rise up and overthrow them. So the government has oppressed all opposition and civil rights movements in the past, and this has to do with those military dictatorships. They would put down any resistance immediately with violence. And a result of this was the Dirty Wars, which was just massive loss of life. You can see there 3,000 Chileans and a huge number of Argentinians, and many were tortured for their political beliefs. So as you can see, not a very stable government. There was a lot of violence going on. In the present, the government is still unstable, but it's growing stronger. And part of the reason that's happening is because the US is an active foreign influence. As we know, the US is a world leader, and it has been involved in many countries around the globe because they want to promote democracy. They want to prevent further military dictatorships, especially in this subregion. Let's talk about some economic aspects of the Southern Cone. Overall, this subregion is much more economically stable compared to many other areas in the region as a whole. So agriculture has been the main source of early development in the subregion and still remains very important today. On the global economy, not as much profit is gained from the agriculture sector. So that's why it has moved away from the agricultural sector and is now into the service sector. The agricultural sector, the main zone is the Pampas, which is the fertile grassland prairie in Argentina and Uruguay. It is used for agriculture and it's very fertile, so many different crops are grown here, which profits the economy. There's grain produced on the Pampas. Another zone is Patagonia. Patagonia is this purple picture I have right here. This is the southern area of the subregion. It has many natural resources such as oil, natural gas, and there's also raising livestock because in this southern area there's a drier climate. So each area has a specific use based on its climate or resources. There's also wine production that is expanding, and a very valuable resource in Chile is copper that is in high demand all over the world. Even in central Chile and southern Argentina, that is a good zone for fruit production. And that's especially valuable in North America. When it's winter, there's a very high demand for fruit. Continuing on economic aspects, the service sector, as I mentioned, is the main sector right now, but it still only has small contributions to the GDP. The economic policy here. So ISI was tried for a period of time, but as usual, as we learned from the rest of the region, it usually causes corruption, job losses, and low quality goods. And this was the case in this subregion. In fact, there were not enough people in the region to even support the import substitution industrialization movement. And there was not, their goods they produced could not compete on the global market. It is now working to redistribute wealth in government subsidies, healthcare, housing, and food. So they're basically trying to improve social services. International influences. The issue they're dealing with right now is owing large debts to the IMF, especially Argentina. These countries are focusing on free market economy to help pay off this debt. But the issue with that is it is at the expense of social reforms. So less social services, there's less money available to improve the life of people because they're focusing on repaying this debt. Now let's talk about foreign investment. The US is a huge partner and key to economic success because there are large North American markets, especially in the US, for many of the agricultural goods and resources that are in this subregion. There are also trade relationships with many other countries in Europe and across the world. Now let's talk about the culture of the Southern Cone. Talking about the people, there were many European immigrants in the 1800s and 1900s, many of those from Europe, which makes sense why most of the population today is of European ancestry. The people are Germans, Italians, and Irish. The religion is Roman Catholic, and this brings up the idea of liberation theology, which is basically encouraging social reform because the church looked at large inequalities in wealth as sinful. And compared to the rest of this region, the Roman Catholic religion is the main religion in the rest of the region. The way of life. All of these countries have large primate cities, and one example of that is Argentina, the primate city of Buenos Aires. 40% of the population live there. So, besides the large city of Buenos Aires, there are multiple cities around it, which makes it that in this subregion, the majority of people live in urban areas. Although the subregion is one of the more prosperous areas of the region, many people are poor and living in slums. And as you can see in this picture, that does not look like a very sanitary, attractive place to live. So many are struggling with very low wages and barely enough to live on. And compared to the rest of the region, this doesn't make much of a difference because, as we've learned, there is large disparities in wealth in this region. There are a lot of issues with the majority of the country being poor and only a few wealthy elite have most of the wealth and power. The activities that are traditional in this region is the tango dance, as you can see in the top right, and many of the same trends are found in this region from across the globe. Well, that's going to do it for this subregion, and I hope you enjoy your day.